Tom Bevan of Real Clear Politics. He's the co-founder and president of that great website, and he joins us now. Hello, Tom. Good to have you with us.
Hey, Vince. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, it's funny. I'm watching the left is to the extent that they're talking about Trump at all today. I saw some of them pointing out, they're like, Trump's been golfing the last 2 weeks. Well, if he is, it's definitely working for him, Tom.
I know people are marveling at the fact that Donald Trump has managed to stay out of the way while Biden and the Democrats are, sort of flailing about.
Yeah.
That's totally not his MO. He usually finds a way to make himself the story, even when he, shouldn't. But this time he is being remarkably disciplined. I mean, he's made some posts on True Social or whatever, trolling and whatnot. But
right.
For the most part, to your point, he's been staying out of it. And that, that's been probably a good thing for him.
He's figured out in this campaign definitely how to use constraint to his advantage. We were talking to Ned Ryan earlier from American Majority. He attributes a lot of that to the advice he's getting from Susie Wiles on the campaign, that apparently President Trump respects her a great deal. And I remember just like even during his New York trial that he would step up to those microphones, he would make some comments, but he wouldn't take any questions from the press. That seemed to me like a very considered decision. The other thing is like that debate. He kind of let Biden just blow up on stage. He didn't have much to say as it happened. He just watched it like the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out that I think the debate rules that he agreed to actually helped him because he didn't try and, shout or interrupt. And he just kind of stood there and looked at Biden while he was, trying to finish a sentence. And then he actually had a couple of good comebacks, which were, I thought, a couple of the most effective lines of the night came from him just responding to Biden. So,
right.
He's been remarkably disciplined. That is not a word that is normally used in the same sentence with Donald Trump.
So on the polling front, like I said, we got an Emerson survey today that shows President Trump doing well in the swing states, beating Biden. And he's put a bunch of states in play that a lot of people didn't think were even going to be in play. And it's my impression, and at least I keep hearing the conventional wisdom, is that pollsters typically underestimate President Trump's support. Is that your view? Running a website, of course, that looks at these polls so frequently. What do we learn, if anything, from this polling data?
Well, I mean, you have to go back and look at the last few cycles. And certainly it is the case that when Donald Trump is on the ballot, his support has been underestimated. It happened in 2016. It happened again in 2020. Now, on the midterms in 2018, 2022, it was not that way. The polling was much more accurate in terms of gauging the support. So, but again, Trump is on the ballot, and so it's not an outlandish inference to think that these numbers may actually be understating his support. I'm not sure that any of these pollsters are going out of their way to make their assumptions about the electorate more favorable to Donald Trump. I think so. The fact that he's up 3.3% in the national average, 4.9 in the two-way race, 4.9% in the five-way race, and you look back to 2020 on this day 4 years ago, he was trailing Joe Biden by 8.8%. So you're talking about a 12-point swing nationally in 4 years in favor of Donald Trump.
So that was going to be my next question. Going into the 2020 election, that was the trend that the polls said that Trump was losing that race. It ended up being closer than they assessed, but all the way up until Election Day, he was trailing Biden. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, Biden made this assertion in his interview with George Stephanopoulos that all the polls in 2020 said he couldn't win, and which is just completely untrue. Of the 229 polls that were taken, national polls that were taken in 2020, Joe Biden led in 227 of them, and he had an average lead of anywhere from 5 to 10 points. He finished in our averages, I think 7.2 or 3, and as you mentioned, I mean, he only won by 4 or 5. So again, Trump did better than the polls projected that he would do.
Yep.
But yeah, you go look at the graphs over time, and it's really dramatic. I mean, in 2016, it was a close race. They were sort of bouncing around. Clinton would be ahead, and then Trump would close the gap, and then Clinton would be ahead again, and then Trump would close the gap. In 2020, Joe Biden, the lines never even came close to meeting. I mean, it was just, they were two very stable lines all the way across the chart for the better part of a year. And you look at it this time, and it's much more like 2016, but Donald Trump is the one who has the advantage now. And so I just think, it's just a different environment, and there's no reason to believe that these polls are doing anything to overstate Donald Trump's support right now.
So I know polling is an inexact science. They try and get as close as they can to what the electorate is actually saying or thinking. I remember in the over the last few elections, every so often we'd have from the Trafalgar Group, Robert Cahaly come on, and he would use the phrase "shy Trump voters" to talk about people who are voting for Trump but don't really want to admit it, including to pollsters. They'll just make their decision inside of the ballot box. My impression, Tom Bevan, is I feel like people are less and less shy about their political views now. In fact, we're watching a lot of demographic upheaval as so many more Black and Hispanic voters have signaled that they're supporting Trump enthusiastically this cycle. How much does that demographic shift and these sentiments about Trump upset the ability to accurately detect the sentiment of the public?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think there's as much shy Trump effect. There might be among some moderates who and independents who are looking at these choices. They really don't like the two choices, and they're going to go with the lesser of two evils. And if that turns out to be Trump, they may not be wanting to, tell that out loud to their neighbors or the, pollsters necessarily. Right. But by and large, I don't think that's the main thing that's going on with the electorate and with the polls right now.
But the demographic shift seems pretty consequential to me. If you're a Hispanic voters are at this point practically a coin toss in terms of who they're likely to support. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question Trump is doing better with African American voters and Hispanic voters, particularly males, right? And it's because, look, it's an economic, it's a class argument, an economic argument, a populist argument that doesn't matter whether you're, what color you are. It is about sort of, the economy and bringing down inflation and all of these things that really cut across, in some ways, ideological lines, but certainly class lines and race lines. And that's where I think Trump has made the most gains.
Do you think there's any evidence that Kamala Harris would change the math here? Because the belief on the left at the moment, many on the establishment left, is we need to basically get rid of Joe Biden and make Kamala Harris the nominee. She may appeal to, as they put it, voters of color. Is there any evidence that would be true, that she would chip away at President Trump's advantages here?
Not really. I mean, there was this one CNN poll that came out last week that got a lot of attention because it had Trump beating Biden by 6 and only beating Harris by 2 points. But we don't have a ton of data. I mean, we do know we have a lot of data that shows that her job approval rating is as bad or worse than Joe Biden. Her favorable rating is worse than Joe Biden's. So would she animate Black women? Yes. Would that spill over to white women? Probably. But Joe Biden's, already winning a lot of those folks anyway. So I'm not sure that she's going to radically alter this race. For those voters out there who are concerned that Joe Biden is too old, she certainly wouldn't have that issue, and she would be able to, I think, assuage all of those concerns immediately. It would go away as an issue. The only problem for Democrats too, Vince, by the way, is, if Biden stands aside and Kamala Harris becomes the nominee, but Biden doesn't resign as president, I would think, if we had an honest press corps, and sometimes we really don't, but that the question would be, why can he, if he's not fit to be a candidate for the presidency, why is he fit to be serving as the presidency?
Right.
The other question that she will face is, what did you know and when did you know it? And did you lie to the American people about what you knew? She's on record publicly many, many times, including just this past weekend, saying that, that's, she spends a lot of time with Joe Biden, and he's good, and that's not the Joe Biden that she knows. I'm not sure that a lot of folks would believe that. So she's going to face some serious questions on those issues. But as far as the age issue goes, she would not have that problem, obviously.
Right. She even attacked Robert Hur as a liar when he assessed that President Biden was not with it when they spoke, and that's the reason he said for why he wouldn't be recommending charges for the president in the stolen classified documents case. In terms of Kamala Harris, it was your tweet this morning. I noticed that this letter that the White House put out that under Biden's name, claiming that he's staying in this race. They repeated a line that Biden has often used, which is that he is the best candidate to beat Trump. What does that say about Kamala Harris?
Well, right. It is a shot at her indirectly, right? It can't be anything else. If he thinks he's the best candidate, then he clearly thinks she's not as good of a candidate, and she's inferior as a candidate in terms of her ability to beat Trump. So he said that. And the other thing he said, in this letter is that, how can they be arguing that they're trying to stand up for democracy when they're not even going to respect democracy of the voters in their own party? And that's actually a really strong point. It's a valid point. And one that I think, if you look at the betting odds, and I've been keeping a close eye on the betting odds because they're very reactive to, it took us over a week to get a decent amount of polling data to find the fallout from the debate. But the betting markets react almost instantaneously. And, after the debate, Kamala Harris shot up and overtook Joe Biden in terms of her chances of winning the Democratic nomination. But just in the last 24 hours or so, and we have a betting odds average page that averages the 6 largest betting markets in the world. Biden is back ahead of Harris, and not in an insignificant way. It's like 20 points he's above her in terms of his chances now of being the nominee. So it seems like what he's been doing over the weekend, the letter, the Morning Joe, all of that has helped shore up his position among Democrats in terms of him remaining the nominee. Now, obviously, there's still a ways to go. He's got some work to do, and all of it could go south if he has a bad moment on stage. Yeah. At any of these events that he now has to do. I mean, he has to be out there. This press conference is scheduled for Thursday. I mean, but at least in the short term, it seems to be working for him.
Finally, what do you think of this press conference? What's going to happen? Do you think is he walking into the lion's den?
That is a great question. I mean, you saw at the White House press briefing today, Karine Jean-Pierre faced a press corps that was more hostile to her than she has ever seen before. It was like basically what a Trump press secretary faced almost every day.
Yes.
Just the shouting, the pushing, just the badgering back and forth. And she was taken aback by it. She was like, Ed, she was talking to Ed O'Keefe of CBS News, like, hey, no need to get, snippy, and let's have some respect here and all that, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I do think the press corps now is the protective armor that they have been providing for the president over the last 4 years has been stripped away. And it was stripped away by that debate. That veneer was punctured, and 50 million people saw with their own eyes what they had only caught very small glimpses of over the first 4 years, because the press was either too lazy or too partisan, or just not, honest enough to write those stories. And now they have done a 180, and so I think he's going to face pretty serious questions from the press. I would expect, but you never know. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what actually happens.
Yeah, because I don't think that armor ever really belonged to Biden. I think that armor is for the party. I think, but we'll see what happens. Thank you very much, Tom Bevan from Real Clear Politics, sir. Always nice to talk to you.